So the NBA draft lottery was last night, and just like a lot of people expected, the San Antonio Spurs won the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. So let's not waste any more time. Let's start off through the first 4 picks that were announced. Nothing really out the ordinary. Once we got into the top 10, things got interesting. The first team I want to talk about is the Dallas Mavericks. Now, a lot of people know that the Dallas Mavericks tanked at the end of the season to retain their pick because if it fell outside of the top 10, it was going to go to New York, but it stayed exactly at 10th. So now the Dallas Mavericks have a decision to make. You have Luka Doncic, you're going to resign, or at least look to resign Kyrie Irving. And then there's a lot of other decisions you're gonna have to make in free agency. But with that 10th overall pick, you could draft a player that could be a connector, someone maybe like a Grady Dick. You could maybe look to Jordan Hawkins, Jett Howard. There are a lot of options for them. But I think the most logical option is to trade that pick. Now, what can the 10th overall pick get you? I'm not too sure. In a previous video about the Dallas Mavericks, I talked about trading the 10th overall pick for OG Anunoby. I feel like if that deal is on the table, you take that 100% of the time. The time is now to really press the issue and look to win. The 10th overall pick can definitely get you a very reliable player or multiple players if you look at that direction. So it looks like their end of season decision actually worked out for them. We'll see what they do with this pick. The Washington Wizards and Utah Jazz own the 8th and 9th pick respectfully. Now, this is where they were obviously slated to be, but with these two franchises both being in kind of a weird situation, you would have wanted to move up. Speaking on the Washington Wizards first, they have a lot of crazy decisions to make. What's the contract going to look like for Kristaps Porzingis? What are you going to do with Kyle Kuzma? And you already have Bradley Beal locked in, so you're pretty much locked into this core. You're picking 8th once again, which has not been kind to you in the past. You would have really hoped to get a franchise-altering player. So now what is their future going to look like? You could make the case that this, paired with a little more, could be enough to get like a Pascal Siakam. And having a core 4 of Bradley Beal, Kyle Kuzma, Pascal Siakam, and Kristaps Porzingis could get interesting in the Eastern Conference. And for the Utah Jazz side, they have so many picks in the coming years, but as of right now, the only legitimate core player you have is Lauri Markkanen. Now you're looking to pick 9th, and you have ammo to make a trade up if you want to do so. I feel like this is the draft that you would want to do that. Try to find that point guard of the future potentially. But as of right now, they will be picking 9th in this year's NBA draft. The Orlando Magic hold the 6th and 11th overall picks in this year's NBA draft. And I'm certain that they're going to at least look to trade up into the top 4. There's so much young talent on this team already with Franz Wagner and the Rookie of the Year, Paolo Banchero. There's Jalen Suggs, you took 5th overall 2 drafts ago. You have Wendell Carter Jr. You have other young pieces on this team. I don't know if you can bring in another 2 lottery picks and expect them to really produce considering all the minutes you have to distribute next season. So with that in mind, it makes sense to trade up at least into the top 4 to try to see if you can get one of the Thompson twins, adding more versatility. It makes so much sense, man. I would be shocked if it didn't happen. And now we have to talk about the biggest loser in this year's NBA draft. It was the Pistons, man. The Pistons had the worst record in the NBA. The best odds to secure the #1 overall pick, and they fell all the way down to 5th. All that tanking that they did to not even be rewarded is exactly the reason why Adam Silver and company have established these new draft lottery rules. Their draft lottery luck has been the difference between them having Cade Cunningham, Chet Holmgren, and Victor Wembanyama to them now having Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Jarice Walker, or one of the Thompson twins, or Cam Whitmore. Now, that isn't too bad, of course, but obviously you'd want to have one of the top 3 picks. All in all, it is bad, obviously, but it isn't too bad for them. They do have a lot of great young pieces. Now let's talk about the top 4. Another team that fell was the Houston Rockets. They were 14% chance of getting that #1 overall pick, fell down to 4. You're looking at one of the Thompson twins, which is okay. Obviously not what you wanted. You want to pick in that top 3, but you have Jabari Smith Jr., you have Jalen Green, KPJ is a question mark. You have Alfred Sengun. Pick, those are good building blocks for a team that just hired Ime Udoka to lead them hopefully to the promised land within the next however long it's going to take them to turn up and be better. The 3rd overall pick is going to be made by the Portland Trailblazers, and there's a lot of questions surrounding this pick. Now, about a month, 2 months ago, the Portland Trailblazers basically came out and said if they don't get the #1 overall pick, they're going to look to trade this pick. I think they expected to stay at the 5th overall pick, and if you look to trade that pick, it makes sense. You know, I understand trading that pick, but if you're picking 3rd with a chance to get one of Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller, I just don't think it's going to be a trade out there that's going to be worth it. And now we have the top 2 picks in this year's NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets and the San Antonio Spurs. First, talking about the Charlotte Hornets, they needed this, man. After a year of disarray, straight disappointment and dysfunction, they were rewarded with the 2nd overall pick. They have to have talks with Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward to see what's going to happen with those guys. Will Miles Bridges be back with this team? How is LaMelo Ball looking health-wise? But these are all good questions to have. And now with an opportunity to add one of Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller, that's going to be great for them. But the biggest question is, which direction do they go in? Now, a lot of people are saying Brandon Miller because of fit, but let's be honest, when you're picking 2nd overall, you cannot look at fit. And to me, I think the right pick to make is picking Scoot Henderson. There might be some question marks about how Scoot and LaMelo Ball fit, but LaMelo Ball is a great shooter, man. He can do well off ball, and that gives Scoot Henderson an opportunity to work on his off ball game himself. Because knowing NBA point guards to be as dynamic as possible, you have to learn how to play off ball. That's going to be an electric, explosive backcourt that's going to terrorized the league with their playmaking and scoring punch for years and years and years. And I really hope that the Hornets make the right decision. That decision is picking Scoot Henderson. And now we have to talk about the San Antonio Spurs getting Victor Wembanyama. I'm going to make a longer video on the Spurs and their team moving forward, but to just talk about them right now, they deserve it, man. They deserve it. The Spurs are a great organization. I don't think it's a more perfect team for Victor to go to. You got Greg Popovich, who's probably going to coach for a couple more years, knowing that Victor Wembanyama is on the way. The defensive versatility, the defense in general of that 2 through 5 is going to be insane. And they're all super young. It's a culture in place in San Antonio. And Victor Wembanyama is going to be on a team where he's going to be the guy from day one. The Spurs are a very hard-nosed organization. They're going to get the right players around Victor, the right staff around Victor to ensure that he is as successful as he can be. And you talk about a guy, a prospect who a lot of people are saying is the best prospect since LeBron James. This is going to be crazy for that Spurs team. And I cannot wait to see all the craziness that happens at the NBA draft. The NBA draft lottery was as exciting as anyone could have hoped for. And only time will tell what each of these teams do with their picks.